We have a quorum, and so I'm going to call us to order, and we will start with an invocation provided today by Greg Dow. Greg, thank you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Nelson, to lead a prayer. If you would bow with me, please. Father, you are a faithful God. Sometimes we wonder how you can be so patient, so sacrificial, so long-suffering, and so committed to us. When we stumble, when we lack trust, when we make poor choices, when we stray from the path, you are still faithful. You made a covenant with your people, and you have stuck with it. And we wonder, why would your love be so tenacious, so persistent, so unrelenting? We know you could turn your back, you could dissolve our relationship, but you choose to be faithful. And we have chosen you as our God. When we wake in the morning, you are our God. When we walk through this life, you are our God. On our deathbed, you are our God. During our dark times, you are our God. When worldly success comes our way, you are our God. When we are living in the wilderness, you are our God. As we grow and mature, you are our God. In our city and in our community, you are our God. You have chosen to live with us, among us, and in us. You have commissioned us to be your ambassadors. You have challenged us to bear witness to the gospel in all the world. Deserved or not, you faithfully lead us, care for us, and trust us. And for our only response is to dwell with you and cry out that we are your people and you are our God. Amen.
If you want to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, we're doing that now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to start our time here. We have one proclamation that's next up on the agenda, but before we do that proclamation, I would like to recognize a special guest who's in the room with us today. Pew, do you mind standing? This is my friend Pew, and she and I have met recently through the Refugee Language Project, and I have invited her to come and just learn about what it means what does the City Council do, where do we meet, how often do we meet. She's a recent graduate of West Texas A&M University and has a math degree and is a recent new employee at our favorite community college, Amarillo College. So I'm thrilled to see Pew here today learning about our city. Pew, if you lived in Amarillo 5 years, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. First time in Dumas 2 years and Amarillo
for 3 years. Okay, so you've been here for 5 years. So I hope to be spending quite a bit of time with Pew and learning what it's like to be a refugee placed in our city, and at the same time being an opportunity for her to ask questions and learn about Amarillo. So Pew, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you all to be a part of the community, and I love to be a part of the community in Amarillo, and I just want to give something, so I'm a volunteer at Refugee Language.
I love that heart. Love that heart. We're going to be great friends. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a proclamation for Black History Month. And so I want to invite everyone who's here. I know Gunny and Melody, anybody else that's here in the room, for that to step on up and celebrate that with us. And do I have a volunteer council member who wants to read the proclamation? Okay, Councilmember Stanley, would you be willing to do that for us? We're going to step in front, too, so we can all stand with you guys. Go right ahead. Yes. No? At the end, I might turn the microphone over to Gunny or to Melody. If you give it to Melody, you might
garner support throughout the country as people of all ethnic and social backgrounds discuss the African American experience. And whereas it not only honors the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our nation, but it also provides an opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage. And whereas such knowledge can strengthen the inside of all of our citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers of equality for minority groups, and the continuing struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. And whereas the City of Amarillo joins in the unified endeavor of its community members in paying homage to those that have helped carry on the resolute efforts and a continual reminder of the achievements and sacrifices by African American men and women who contributed to the advancements of human civilization. And whereas this year's theme, Black Health and Wellness, as chosen each year by the American Association for the Study of African American Life and History, offers a reminder to the importance for caring for both ourselves and the greater community, mental, physical, health, and wellness. Now, therefore, we, Mayor and City Council of the City of Amarillo, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 as Black History Month. In Amarillo, we urge our citizens to join together in making this a period of rededication to the principles of justice and equality for all. Given under our hands this seal of office, the 22nd day of February 2022, the Honorable Ginger Nelson, Mayor, Cole Stanley, Frida Powell, Eddie Sauer, and Howard Smith.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hand
Melanie, yeah, either of you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, City of Amarillo. I'd just like to say that when we talk about Black History Month here in Amarillo, it's not Black history, it's our history. When you take a look at up the street, we got First Pedestrian Church, First Baptist Church, I'm sorry. Mount Zion Baptist Church is the first church for the Black community here in Amarillo. That church burned down 3 times. We put it back together, the congregation of First Baptist. They donated items. They put members on the boards so the Ku Klux Klan would not touch it again. You take a look at the cows, the cowboys, the wranglers here in Amarillo. Who broke those horses that they rode? Bone hooks. Our prison, even though that was a big controversy in naming it Neil, because Mr. Neil was an educator, he was a mentor, but yet the people of Amarillo, the state of Texas, felt that he's an honorable man and named it. You take a look at James Allen's father. We all seen the movie of the Titans. Well, it was right here in Amarillo when Carver was sorry, I forgot the word I was trying to use, but when Carver no longer exists, he went over to AISD and continued to be a coach because he had such a reputation at Carver that the Amarillo Independent School District still wanted him. So, yes, we're celebrating Black History Month, but no, it's our history. It's our history together that bonds us together here in Amarillo. And we all work together. And we can't go forward if we don't think of the past. So I thank you for this opportunity. And thank you, City of Amarillo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gunny. Did we get a good picture? We're going to get one. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Hey, I want a quick selfie. You guys. All right, Melanie, hold that. All right, good. Thank you.
I'm naturally too.
Awesome. Oh, there it is, okay. Man, I just love celebrating that, and you two guys are leaders in our community. You're not black leaders, but you are leaders, and I appreciate that you made time to come and celebrate that with us. And Cole, you did a great job of reading that proclamation. Thank you. Okay, on to the agenda. I will not miss this setup on Sunday. We don't today have anyone signed up for public address, but I do know that the city manager has an announcement about an employee who's been selected by the governor for a special role.
Well, I think it's... Someone to remind me to turn on my microphone.
Turn on your microphone.
I think it's exciting to make note of when our staff and when our personnel are recognized for leadership roles in state organizations. Johnny Scholl, our Director of Building Safety, has been reappointed to the Texas Industrialized Building Code Council. He was reappointed to the Texas Industrialized Building Code Council by Governor Abbott. So it's a personal appointment from Governor Abbott, which is it's a big compliment to the city of Amarillo, to our team here at the city, and also to our community that we stand on the radar of the governor. He's originally appointed to the board in August of 2020 as part of a group appointed to the council and announced this week, which oversees the state program regulating industrialized housing and buildings. Council also establishes procedures for inspections and makes determinations concerning alternative materials or methods of construction. And if you're not familiar with the building industry, that might sound really bureaucratic. Might sound somewhat bureaucratic, but when you get to the nuts and bolts, rubber meets the road definition of what we do, a lot of what we do here in the city of Amarillo is build things. We grow and we build. And this gives Johnny a key voice statewide in how we facilitate those efforts of builders and business owners who are looking to build something in which to operate a business. So this is a big compliment to the city of Amarillo. It's certainly a big compliment to Johnny Scholl. I'm excited to have him on our team. He couldn't be here with us today. But this is a big feather in his hat, but I also think it's a big feather on our community's hat. So thank you, Johnny. When I see you next, I'm sure you'll want to give me a high five, but it is a big deal, and I wanted to make sure the council and our community was aware of his accomplishments and our accomplishment as an organization and as a community statewide.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Congratulations to Johnny. Council, any questions for Jared about that? Okay. Great. Well, let's move into agenda item 1A. Is there anything in your packet that you need information on right up front? Okay. Item 1B is updates from council members serving on outside boards and commissions. 1BA is Beautification Public Arts Advisory Board. Dr. Sauer?
Yes, ma'am. So the Beautification and Public Arts Advisory Board met on February the 8th. And actually, the meeting was relatively a simple meeting. So the two main things that actually happened were they reviewed the subcommittee had reviewed the applications for the mural grant project for the 2022 year. And the board recommended approval of 7 of them, I believe. And so currently, the staff is working through the administrative process, and once that's all been taken care of, then they'll be notifying the selected applicants. So we should be hearing about that pretty soon. So there should be another 7 murals that will be added to the repertoire that we're rapidly increasing here in Amarillo. The other thing, major discussion was they were discussed about the art pads, for the 6 different regional parks basically here in town. And right now, what has been decided is there's been a subcommittee that's being created with the park board, and they're coordinating on selecting the art and the process at how the art will be selected for that. And so we should be hearing more on that in the future on how we'll see art starting to show up in the park. So it's a really good meeting.
Great summary. Any questions from the council about those two projects. I was at a water symposium last week in the city, and one of the presenters was from out of town and commented on the robust mural art scene Amarillo had going. And I wanted you to hear that feedback, because you have, from the moment you sat down in that chair 5 years ago, worked to make our city more beautiful. And we didn't have this board that you just gave a report on, and you were instrumental in creating it. So I thought that was a great shout out to everyone who's worked on that, and Sherman definitely has been a huge part of launching that effort. But it's now launched, and we're enjoying it in the city, and people from across the state are hearing and knowing about it. So she was promoting it for you from her presentation to that group.
Yeah, I think that's really great that actually it's enough now that there doesn't have to be a little nudge to say, have you seen it? People are actually beginning to notice it. So I think it's a really, it's a great asset to the city. So
yeah,
that's
it's
really
something
great
to be proud of and built on. So
yeah.
Great job, guys. Anything else on that? Okay, moving on to item B, the Parks and Rec Board. Dr. Sauer?
Okay, this one was there's a little bit more to this one than there was to the other one. Let me see if I can get through all of it through. In the staff update, they have put out a call for a marketing coordinator, I believe, and are continuing to talk about creating the position for the Beautification and Arts Board. That position will be a staff-level position that would help handle a lot of those things, and so that's being talked about. Let's see, talking about the athletic lighting and complex update. They put out the contract for several different things to begin looking at that update and exactly how that's going to work, especially with the lighting that has been, the COs that have been approved for the lighting. Now that'll have a major impact upon how the design is done or how the lighting is done with that. And so there's a lot to be done on to there. They talked about park maintenance bids. So they're going to contract out the mowing for most of the Parks and Rec, and they're going to keep the athletic field mowing in-house. Let's see. They've also, the other bids that have been gone out is there's an electrical services bid that has been placed out to help take care of the electrical services that need to be taken care of. There's a lot of lighting and a lot of other things, and so to have that being able to be taken care of, it's a good idea to just bid that out and see what kind of a I don't want to say a deal, but what kind of situation could be set up by putting out that for bid. Also, they're looking at a court resurfacing bid, and they're also looking at a forestry bid. Those are the next two that will go out to determine, putting trees in the different parks, how that would look. And the tennis courts several of them are in need of, it's time to start talking about resurfacing them. So they're beginning to put those out for bid to look at that. There's a possibility, also talking about a restroom removal bid also to get that taken care of. Then basically we're going to be to the point where the restrooms will be pretty much at the regional parks and not really at the neighborhood parks, since they're within walking distance of most of the residents. And that will definitely help us, the city, as far as how maintenance and what our maintenance fees are if we're not having to try and maintain those structures. We also got a update on the trails, and that one was a really cool update. I wish we had the stuff to kind of show on it. Chris Podzimini with Six Pack Outdoors, he gave us an update on where all that they have been working on the trails. And I don't know if people realize the possibilities for mountain bike trails or bike trails that we have actually sitting in front of us here in town. I bet Howard would probably know about almost all the trails. Have you been on all of them?
Not all of them.
Okay.
Some of them.
So on 9th Street, he talked about that they've completed 4.8 miles have been completed. They're finishing out the northwest corner. They're talking about, they put in a couple of bridges. They're talking about kind of what I would call the way, what is it that we're putting downtown, the wayfinding. They're talking about putting out maps and signs to give you an idea of what's available there. What's real interesting is they're even developing trails out at John Stiff, and they've got 4.3 miles completed. They've got another 2 miles of trails proposed. They've already completed 2 bridges, and they're talking about some other things along where the drainage is, about possibly they might consider putting some trees or something like in that area. Then they go out, and he was talking about the Rick Klein trails. There's 15 miles that are completed out at Rick Klein. That's a lot of miles. And so they are not proposing any new out there at this point in time, although there are some potential for the future. But they're doing a lot of work out there. Then also out near that area, there's the schoolyard, and they're planning. They're doing a cleanup out there, and I believe that's where the old BMX was at. And so they're working on getting that so that it can be usable again, and it's one of their primary objectives for 2022. Actually, I think that pretty well covers just almost everything. So there's a lot going on in Parks and Rec right now.
Questions? Eddie, where can we get information about those trails? I think citizens will be really interested. Michael, are you in here?
Is Michael in here?
Can't see him.
I would say Chris has maps
Yeah, Chris
that he
does
can
have maps.
provide for that.
Okay.
I'll
But
find that for you.
if you're just a citizen and you want to know where to find it,
You know what? I think one of the first places you might look is you might start looking at Six Pack Outdoors.
Okay. Great report. Lots of interesting and quality of life improvements coming. So thank you for serving on that board. Pedestrian
They have a Facebook page.
Six Pack does?
And then
Okay.
they've got an online page, sixpackoutdoors.org.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's move on to Howard and do Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Advisory Committee.
First,
I see
I
you
want to thank.
have a committee member here in the audience.
Say again.
I think you have a committee member here.
Which one?
Lizzie
I'm
Smith?
here. You talking about me?
Other than you, but I'm really glad you're here.
Is Chris here?
Lizzie, I think, is here. Hi, Lizzie. Thanks for being here today.
Okay,
Sorry to interrupt.
that's all right. I want to thank Eddie for making my report.
Sorry.
Chris Podzimi is a new member of the Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Committee. He came to the first meeting this last week, and he's provided maps, and he's going to give a more thorough report at our next meeting. He builds trails not only around Amarillo, which helps the parks around here. He's built them all over the Panhandle. Pelder Canyon, Crossbar Ranch, and many other places. So I'm excited that he's agreed to serve on this committee. We received from the police department maps of where pedestrian accidents have taken place and where bicycle accidents have taken place. We did this a couple of years ago and figured out what we need to do to try to make it a safer place for pedestrians and bikers. And so we're going to be studying that more thoroughly
in the future and coming up with whatever plans. I don't know if any of you saw the news yesterday. I saw a local person on Amarillo Boulevard was hit by a car. The pedestrians were not crossing at the correct place, which just means we need to do more educating on where to cross. But the car hit a person and went on. Nobody knows who it was. Unfortunate to see that. I don't know if they were injured real bad. They walked away from it. But that just shows what we need to do to make things safer. We got to educate people more. So I had more, but Eddie took my thunder. But that's okay. I'm through with that report unless there's questions.
Chris is a busy man.
Obviously. Any questions for Howard then? Howard, we appreciate your service on that board. Lizzie, we appreciate yours as well. Thank you, making our community a safer place. Howard, I'll come back to you to do the Environmental Task Force report.
Okay, we had a new member, Dan Ferguson. He started January 1st. And we had discussions and reports about illegal dumping. That's in the alleys. And what we're doing to try to stop that. Got cameras. That means people move down 2 blocks down the alley. Maybe. And then we heard reports on environmental issues like water usage. And we had a wonderful meeting, wonderful report. And the staff member assigned is Donnie Hooper. I call him Steven Spielberg because he always has pictures and movies. And he's here if he wants to add to what I've said. Come on up.
Do you have a theme song, Stephen, that you want us to play as you come to the microphone?
I don't know, but can we call you George Lucas then, since you're kind of a co-star in all this when we do it?
Y'all are setting high expectations here with these nicknames.
Just to kind of add a little bit to what he said, we presented an overall background on what we're doing. They had asked for this. They wanted to see what we were doing in our illegal dumping task force, where we're at with that. Methods, things that we're using to curb illegal dumping, which y'all know that it's a huge challenge for us, and we're continuing to find ways to improve on that. We also presented a lot of statistics to them as to where we're at now as far as compared to what we have been historically over the past couple of years. Showed some improvements there, and we also just showed them some metrics that we're using to measure where we're at so that we can see how we can make better improvements. Interestingly enough, we're going to have that presentation coming before this council, but it's going to be an expanded version of that that's going to include a lot of things in solid waste, just to give the council an update on not only what we updated them on, but what we're doing in solid waste altogether with some changes that we have there. So that's pretty much the update that we gave them. Is that good enough?
I will say, Donnie, that illegal dumping is something that the City of Amarillo was chosen by the Harvard Bloomberg program to get innovation coaching. And so the innovation team has been formed, 12 staff members, and the project chosen was?
Illegal dumping.
Illegal dumping.
Yes.
So they're getting, Harvard has given us a coach for the next through December to teach us how to innovate. And there's lots of different framework, public engagement, things like that. But the issue they're going to be working is illegal dumping.
We're looking forward to that, and Alan Harder is a representative on there. He's the Assistant Director of Public Works, and he comes back from every meeting just going, oh, this is going to be really good. So we're excited about what that's going to bring to the table to help us with.
Great. Well, we appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
I don't want to shortchange that, but haven't you all had some really good success? Didn't I? I was reading something the last couple of days. You've gone from 1,200 to 200.
Yeah, that that number that they were talking about on that media report, I'm assuming is what you're referring to. There was at one point in time last year, a little over a year ago, that we had over 1,200 outstanding work orders for illegal dumping. We're down to about 200 right now. Now, that number does fluctuate, and that's a little bit skewed. You know, when we get to the winter months, we're going to see those numbers down, and we're going to play catch-up a little bit. But I think we're doing a better job of heading into the busy season. When we get into April and May, it starts to pick back up again, and we have a manageable number that we can – that's the goal anyway, to have that as a manageable number that we can continue to keep it as low as we can so the response time is quicker as well.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we've had some good success with it, for sure.
When we, four of us got on the council, we wanted to do things to clean up the city. This is going a long way towards doing that. Thank you.
You bet.
Good job, Donnie. Thank you.
That's it.
Signing off? Okay. Thanks for your service on that committee as well, Howard. Item 1C is a discussion on our 5-year community investment program. Mr. City Manager?
All right, Mayor, we've got Kyle Sneederjohn, Director of CPD&E, to come and just walk us through the philosophy and an overview of the CIP program that's going to be presented to you coming up in the near future, and to answer any questions council has. Kyle.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Excited to be here. It's this time of year again. We've done this a couple times, but I'm going to pull this up. Excited to present to you. You guys had a copy of our draft document in your box, in your inbox for the meeting, and so you've got that in front of you. But this is the 2020 or the 21-22 CIP, and that's what exactly is that? So the CIP is a 5-year guidance document. It's a planning document that we put together every year, a rolling 5-year plan that builds upon our existing CIP. It builds upon our existing annual budget. It builds on our master planning documents, including the department master plan documents, as well as say the blueprint for the priority documents, the blueprint for Amarillo, or the neighborhood initiative plans that we're working on. All of those documents are represented in the way that projects are prioritized into this 5-year plan, and all of those documents are utilized. This document kind of walks a fine line between an implementable 5-year plan. In other words, on that list is projects that we plan to work our way into implementation on. But it kind of walks the line between implementation and a good way to show the future needs that are out there that may not be implementable typically because of financial reasons. But we try to bridge the gap and show both of those and give a good flavor of both those implementable projects as well as that future need. Year one of the 5-year plan is always adopted in the annual budget. And so year one is nomenclature-wise approved and funded, in that there are fiscal dollars assigned in the budget to year one. Years 2 through 5 are approved unfunded in this document. And so they are, you guys don't make allocations for the next council or the next year's annual budget, and so those technically do not have dollars assigned to them at that time. Even though we've looked at them, we've decided that they are a priority, something that we should be planning to complete, and so approved unfunded. Based on some conversation that we had and input that I've received, I also printed out for you guys, and we'll make that available with the total document, a funded, unfunded report. And so that report that was on your desk today, not in your books over the weekend, is a department-by-department list of projects that have made it into that approved category for the next 5 years, even though years 2 through 5 are technically unfunded, approved unfunded. And then a below list that is the unfunded list, and that's kind of generally how we talk about it in staff. But those projects have effectively kind of fallen down into not a deprioritized, but definitely a different category as unfunded projects that the department has identified as priorities, but we know within a defined time period that they've moved down a hair. They've moved down a categorical amount to the unfunded list. And so that will help you get a flavor of the things that the departments are presenting to us as priorities that maybe we're just barely kind of on the bubble of that funding, and we're barely not getting there. So talked about future years being not funded, but they absolutely are a guide. They are a guidance to the department. They're a guide through our budget conversations and a guide through our investment decisions over the next 5 years. Based on other input, we've had great conversations during budget. We had great conversations most recently even at some of our PDP initiative, the Partnership for Development Progress initiative that has been undergoing over the last few weeks. Had good comments and good discussion in those, and it's impacted this document for this year. We've taken a flavor, taken on an initiative to be a little more forward-facing in the projects that we're showing you, and what that does is it kind of projects more need. It projects a more accurate response to future need, and maybe borderline less implementable on every single project. Meaning that there may be a project on this list that we fiscally can't get to in the next 5 years, but we should be making efforts and planning on how we're going to get to that project and those projects. So the goal of that is obviously to encourage a proactive posture. We had a good conversation about proactive and reactive in our PDP conversations over the last week, and so that's our goal, is to encourage that proactive posture for the departments, empower the departments to utilize those master planning documents that we've paid good money for, that we've asked for somebody to come look at our system and our network and tell us what we need. And so we're encouraging those departments to be proactive in the implementation of those, as well as coordination and coordinating amongst themselves with our development partners, public-private partnerships, those type of opportunities, and encouraging the departments to make sure we're taking advantage of those. In the actual document, I would highlight the narrative piece of the big folder is maybe only 25, 30 pages. It's about as exciting as you can imagine in engineering describing accounting things it would be. And so, but I'd like to think it's not an incredibly hard document to weed your way through. It's not a difficult read per se. Highlights on about page 13 or so, right before the charts and graphs, is actually a summary of each of the departments and their proposed allocation for the next 5 years. So a CIP summary in narrative form. And then about page 18 or so in that regard is the actual project list, which always kind of becomes that topic of conversation. That is the physical list of projects by department for the next 5 years. Likewise, each of you did get a jump drive for that document, which may make some of those tables and charts and graphs a little bit easier to read and decipher and zoom in and move through. So the next steps on this process, what I'm doing here today is introducing that document to you. What we're aimed at is an actual ordinance to approve that document as an operatable document that the departments take ownership in and start to utilize to implement. The next step would be a public hearing on March 8th, and then a second reading of the adoption of on March 22nd. And then likewise, the departments have absolutely begun their implementation of year one, because those dollars were effectively approved in October as the approval of the annual budget. And so they have begun that, and then we'll very similarly we'll be kicking off next year's capital and the planning exercises and conversations that entails right away. We do have, after this meeting, after we've presented it to the council, this document will be made public out on the website for the public access and for the public to review. The easiest way to get there is on the city's webpage, the department, under the Department of Finance. There's a tab for financial information, and this draft document will be posted there with the previous year's capital project or capital CIP plans, programs.
On the website, it's called the Community Investment Program?
Yes, ma'am.
Project list?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, and it's that second heading there. I know that's hard to see on the presentation, but that second heading says the City of Amarillo Community Investment Program, and it has the previous 5 listed there, and this one will be labeled by the year, and it'll be labeled a draft until it is formally adopted. The Finance Department, Financial Information Community Investment Program.
Okay. Any questions for Kyle? Yes, Councilmember Stanley.
So, Kyle, if you can explain the initiative to have an ordinance on this, is that something that is kind of a first time for us as a city? Or do we have an ordinance already in place? We're amending that.
So we effectively do a new ordinance every year that supports the new document. That it is a document that has changes. It rolls, and so we do a new ordinance every year that adopts this plan, and that adds the weight of the council and the review of the council for the public's benefit as well as the department's benefit to know that this information has some gravitas and weight behind it.
And what's the benefit, Kyle, just if I can rabbit trail off a question?
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we just do it in 1 year segments?
Sure. So, obviously this is a planning document. This is a document that the departments use to gauge their priorities versus the priorities and guidance of the council, as well as every single fiscal year is awarded. The first year is awarded in the budget, and that is what is getting implemented. But those other 2 through 5 years really help the departments understand what the vision of the council is, what direction we're headed, as well as helps us coordinate all kinds of things, interaction with each other, interaction with the development community. How does A happen before B happen before C? All of those types of future planning and implementation strategies.
So what I hear you saying is many of these projects are too big to complete in 1 year. It takes multiple years of planning, so why would we get down the road of planning if that wasn't a priority to council to fund? But there's multiple departments that are all touching each other, and there's a need for an overall prioritization of which department's needs take priority over a different department. So
absolutely, and we even saw cash flow issues before the implementation of this. So for your example of a project that might take multiple years to implement, well, maybe we're acquiring the land and then we're designing the project and then we're building the project. Whereas if we didn't have a 5-year plan, you'd see a department requesting the cash required to do all of those things at one time versus being able to fund design, land purchase, and construction in subsequent years. That helps cash flow immensely, especially in a singular fund such as the general fund, where we're not monopolizing those dollars in year one versus utilizing the ability to use some of those dollars throughout that time period. And so that's a very rudimentary operational issue, but this document allows the confidence from a department head standpoint to move forward that way.
okay, Cole, thank you very much.
No.
Your good question
Yeah,
set that
I
off
appreciate
for-
your comment on that because I think it brings clarity to, one, I think y'all do a really good job of trying to plan for the future and trying to foresee as many things as you can. And when you do bite them off in small bites, it's way easier, on that budget. And so, I'm thankful that we don't have to make decisions reactively. It's more proactive. So that being said, how good are you guys at projecting growth and additional revenue / payers on this in the way that you are forecasting several items in here that are 4 or 5 years down the road, large ticket items, and does that get accounted for in here that helps us, in seeing, yes, the direction you're getting is what you're going to need to stay fluid?
Sure. No, great question. And we've had very good conversation about that, even just recently, about sales tax revenue being higher than expected, and what do we do with those dollars? This plan provides us with that future-looking prioritization, such that we have already looked at projects that have risen to the top in a priority sequence. And so we have a forward-facing way to say what we're going to do with those excess revenues. We do not do specifically, even in these, when you drill into some of these projects, I do not roll forward projects from a department that moves into the unfunded category. I do not move that forward into, say, year 2 for this plan. So departments send me their prioritized list 1 through 10, and they may call for projects 1, 2, and 3 in year 1 and subsequent projects in the subsequent years. If we're not able to fund 1, 2, and 3 in year 1, they fall to that unfunded category, and I don't specifically move them forward in this plan. What I rely on is the department to re-request that amount in the subsequent years process. And so there is already a backlog of, say, prioritized projects in any given year that are seeking additional funding. Also, we have prioritized projects in then years 2 through 5, and so there's no shortage generally of those prioritizations, and effectively what we have historically done is any excess revenue and or cost savings associated with a project, maybe a project comes in under budget that we bid in, those funds are rolled back to the fund balance. So a general fund project that has excess revenue or excess funds in it after we've built it, those funds roll back into the general fund balance. They are reallocated based on a prioritization that is coordinated through the city management staff to move forward. And then obviously that project comes back to council to be ultimately awarded. Does that help?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it does.
Yep. Okay. Yes.
That also then mean that what I also take out of that would mean whenever you send it back or it becomes unfunded, that means that every year they're reallocating and looking at, is this still a priority or is it not a priority? I can attest to the fact on MPO, there's been years where they've taken projects 6, 7, and 8 and said, oh wait, now that this has become a priority, and so they got moved up they may have been in year 5, and all of a sudden now then they're showing up in year 1 of the next year because they went back and the prioritization or the value of that project jumped up. So you're saying that these departments are going back and they're reevaluating every year, and so next year the 5-year CIP could show different projects in year 1 that were not there before, but they have become priorities.
Absolutely. There's that opportunity, and there's also opportunities, especially through some of our grant-funded departments, say, the airport or transit has a lot of outside funding opportunities. And so they may find themselves with that opportunity or windfall or whatever that might be, and they may reach out and grab one of those that they had out in year 2 or 3. Maybe it's because it fits the grant, maybe it's because it fits the dollar amount. Knock that thing out, and it comes off the list. So there's an opportunity for both of those scenarios for a project to move up in priority or a project to fall back in priority based on those circumstances. Absolutely, and that happens continuously and all the time. We bring this to you guys kind of on one fell swoop, but But it is a living and breathing document. It moves, it shakes all year long.
I'm glad to hear that it's actually that way, and it's not just because it ended up on the list, we're going to do it come hell or high water. It's going to be prioritized on the need and the place where it falls in the community.
Yep, absolutely.
And who all has input into that, creating the document kind of on a week-by-week basis, Kyle?
Yeah, so all of the department and all of the departments and their department heads and management teams have input into the document. I request when we do a formal call for projects, I request that they are prioritizing their own projects and letting me know where they feel like in their world this is number one, this is number two, this is number three, as well as those sequences. Maybe I need to buy land first and do design and then construct. Tell me both of those things. And they bring that to me. And then myself, I do an initial prioritization based on some categorical things. And then obviously the ACMs, each of which are responsible for one of those departments, have input into that prioritization. And then at this stage, when we're debating year one, we're definitely council and you guys have direct input into that year one list, as well as this opportunity for input right here. And then I don't want to discount, I've mentioned PDP because it's very timely, but the neighborhood initiatives are very similar. There's lots of opportunities throughout the year that our department heads, as well as myself, as well as your ACMs, are receiving comments, receiving questions, receiving input from the community in these different facets, and all of that, literally all of that rolls into. I had that picture there, which may or may not be an analogy for my desk, but all of those plans really are utilized. There, we go back, we read them, we go back, we look, we those neighborhood initiative plans, the master planning documents, all of that has bearing in that prioritization.
So a lot of expertise on our staff, engineers, all kinds of well-educated, expert people are the ones sitting down and analyzing and prioritizing, knowing year over year what's in previous plans and year over year what's coming down the pike as far as needs and infrastructure changes that we have.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
a lot of smart, hardworking people.
Thank you, if that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Yes,
It is
ma'am.
meant as a compliment.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Kyle? Jared, what kind of feedback do you need from us with regard to, I appreciate seeing the schedule. So what's coming next, council, is this will be an action item. If you've got concerns, now is your time to talk about them. If you want the council to hear them, if you feel like what you need is just to sit down and get some one-on-one explanation, diving a little deeper, obviously, city manager can arrange that. But what are your thoughts? Any concerns?
None.
Okay.
No concerns. This will be on the March 8th meeting and the March 22nd meeting for a second reading.
2 readings, yep.
Yes, sir.
Any concerns?
So, not concerns, just a need for additional info. And so
Sure.
I think it'd be best served for our time for me to get a little more acquainted over the next 2 weeks with some of the funding and the ways in which things come and go in that CIP, and then being able to identify a few areas that aren't identified in here. They're identified, they're just not here before us.
Sure.
And see what would be the appropriate way of trying to present those or incorporate those into this. So not that I necessarily would like or need a discussion with council on what those items are, but I understand that in another 2 weeks we'd have another opportunity to discuss it and make sure that it's what council would still steer and all direct if the monies were available. Is that okay to go
I think
that way?
getting more information, this is your first time doing that, so that's certainly expected.
Yeah.
Is there any specific different or additional information that's needed between now and March 8th?
No, I think specifically like what I would be reaching out for is maybe like future growth, infrastructure, things like that, streets, sewer, water, and how that appropriates for new payer services and is incorporated in this, so that, you know, we're not in a position where we're funding what we need to here based on what we currently own. We don't necessarily have a plan forward for what we don't own yet. And are we allocating those future revenues to help offset that? So, you know, fire station's a good example. You know, do those 2,500 new housing units help pay for that fire station? So getting that from you, I think, would be great. You know, homelessness and housing is kind of another one that I couldn't gain a lot of, I guess I'd say monies that I saw allocated. So I just wanted a little further explanation on those. But nothing that's a concern in the way of like not getting left out, just more or less acknowledgement or pointing it out, or maybe a better understanding for me for how this process works going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that can be arranged, certainly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jared, do you have anything else to add to that?
No. I think that, well, yes, I think that that's going to bridge a conversation between what do we want to do in next year's CIP and philosophically, how do we approach CIP?
And there's some, you know, I can sit in on a conversation on some of that with you too, just whether or not 2,500 houses pays for the new fire station that they're going to need to take care of them depends on how long you're looking at the time frame. Are they paying for it in 10 years? Or are you paying for it in 50 years? So, I mean, there are a lot of variables in those numbers, and it's you can't just say, yeah, it pays for itself.
Well, I think that another philosophical conversation is going to be, does a new expense that we don't currently have or a new need that we don't currently have supersede existing hundreds of millions of dollars of needs that are on the list that are not being funded? So philosophically, where are we putting our resources from a capital standpoint is going to be a very important conversation.
Yeah, so we'll have that conversation. Okay, great. Anybody else, anything for Kyle? Kyle, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We are at item 1D, which is request future agenda items and reports from the city manager. Anybody have something they need more information on? Hearing none, let's move to the consent agenda. Anything there that needs to come off for further discussion or questions?
There may need to be a correction on the minutes. It's got me down as place 2 instead of place 3.
Oh, okay. I think that
I don't know that that's a
be corrected.
we can correct at all, but
I'm not going to have any heartburn on that.
Thanks for catching that.
Mayor, I'm trying to find it. Not to be pulled off in an issue to vote on separately, but just to see if we could speak to our animal management welfare.
The veterinary contracts?
Yes, I'm trying to look
Item
for
KK.
There's a few of them here, so let me keep flipping. So KK.
It's 2KK.
Okay, there we go. I just wanted to get a little further discussion on that before that goes through, if that's all right.
Okay, sure. Victoria?
We have Director of Animal Management and Welfare, Victoria Medley, here to just walk us through what the item is, contracting with these 5 veterinarians.
Okay, so our contract, what we're asking for this year is definitely a change that we've done than we've had historically in the past. Mm-hmm. We've employed a full-time vet in the past. It's very difficult to find somebody that wants to do shelter medicine year-round. We're a shelter that's 365 days, 24 hours, all the time. And so really looking to the future, trying to be more proactive than reactive, we have decided that as a business model is to contract out to vets. So the idea is that instead of just relying on one, we would have several vets that could work at least one day a week. With that, we have some consistency. We're making sure that we're addressing any of the needs of the community and the shelter, but we're also given the ability that they can collaborate. Shelter medicine is very difficult. And so with that, we want that collaboration. So it's not just on one person. This last year was really the first year we were able to spin that up with our new clinic that we have been able to put together, and Dr. Lee was one of our first contracted vets. And she, much like the other contracted vets, are really looking for some flexibility. They don't want 40 hours a week. They want to be able to still have families, have some outside life. So this is their ability that they can still give to the community, work really close, help us, but then have somebody there that they can, number one, consult on, or number two, know that they're going to be there if they're on vacation or they're out with a sick kid. So we've really seen that has been a better model for us. It's also been really effective in that Dr. Lee and the other two currently contracted vets have been able to work really close with our Texas Tech partners at the vet school. With the ultimate goal is in 3 to 4 years, when Texas Tech will have third and fourth year students that will be able to do like spayed, neutered, and common, like general practice type medicine with our animals, that we will be able to phase to them. They will be able to do some of the heavy lifting when it comes to spayed, neutering, because ultimately our goal, and I think when Proposition 2 passed and the voters approved it, was that we do want to make sure that every animal that comes out of the shelter is spayed and neutered to help address some of the issues that we have with the overabundance of stray animals and unvaccinated animals and unneutered animals. So really looking at this seemed to be the best, most proactive business model for us and for the city.
Any other questions?
So currently you're working with 3 vets?
Yes, so we have Dr. Leah Lee, we have Dr. Rami Jisha, and Dr. Sarah Giebel. So Dr. Giebel just currently had a baby, which was exciting, but she was also off for 12 weeks. And so this contract type of being able to schedule them has been really helpful. Dr. Jisha works 1 day a week and comes in and reviews the animals in the shelter and then knocks out a significant amount of spayed neuters.
So you'll go from 3 to 5 per this contract, which will be helpful.
Yes.
So we're currently getting our work done with 3. We're moving to 5, which I think is good in the way of, if you have, I agree with you in your business model. I think if you have one chef, everything kind of tastes the same. And so, you've got 5. I think that helps in a lot of different ways, in different expertise or talents, abilities. But then I really like the idea of having this collaborative with Texas Tech. And so if you were to say, you're saying the Texas Tech school students should be able to perform certain procedures in 2 years? Is that what I heard you say?
It will actually, they have to be third or fourth year students.
Okay.
And so like currently right now we have some of their first year students doing just some really basic hands-on with animals, just a basic, almost like a physical. And as they go through their education, they'll be able to be out at our clinic with whatever vet we have there overseeing them, and they'll be able to do those spayed neuters or do any of those types of services that we need and do the overall herd or shelter medicine.
Right.
Yes.
So to my own confession, not being very aware of animal management here in Amarillo, and not knowing a tremendous amount about it, but now getting a much better in-depth understanding of the difficulties that we have in the size of our community, the population of pets and reproductive. And so, like, I have no concerns over this consideration, this contract, anything. I kind of wanted it spoken to more on the side of these are the solutions that we need you implementing. These are the things that I think go unnoticed on Facebook and kind of unnoticed when we have a problem. And so I just kind of wanted to pull it out because these are things that don't pay off for a year. But a year from now, we'll look back and we'll be able to see the metrics and see the benefit in this. And so that was my reasoning for asking you to give a little bit more info just to not skip through it. And so thank you for the work you're doing, and I think the business model is even better than what we had before.
Agreed. Your leadership is very much appreciated at AMW, and it's very fun for the 4 of us who were on council in 2017 when we picked up the reins to really fight for the vet school. I can remember traveling all over the state with Dean Lonergan. He wasn't the dean at the time, but, I spent a lot of hours and covered a lot of miles with him advocating for this vet school opportunity for our city, for our whole region. And, one of the things Guy would say to me occasionally is he would say, this will be really good for the city. He said, because we will need your partnership. Our students will need your shelter, and your shelter animals will have the benefit of the expertise of our staff, our faculty, but also just the students who are curious and want to learn and available to learn. And so it's super exciting to me. All of those things that we said would benefit and would come when we got the vet school opportunity, I'm still just so grateful. I'm so grateful to all of our state legislators, to just to the faculty and everything they've done to get that school up and running, because it creates a lot of ripples of opportunities, as do many of our partnerships. We have similar partnerships with Amarillo College and West Texas A&M too, so we appreciate all of that. But that one's especially cool for this council. We got to see it across the finish line.
Because you have changed the tone out there a great deal, so it's just for the better.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay. Very much. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we do. I move to approve the consent agenda with the noted correction to the minutes.
Second.
All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that item passes with 5-0 vote. Does anybody need a bathroom break, or should we go on into the consent? Okay, let's keep going then.
Let's move.
All right. Item 3A is consideration of ordinance number 7961. Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, we've got Anthony Spinell, Director of Environmental Health, to go over this item and paying particular attention to the community input and public input that was part of this process. I'm always proud of the work that he does, bringing everyone involved. It's always a big deal anytime we work on ordinances that deal with how we regulate certain industries. So we want to make sure that we're always getting as much input as possible while we're still complying with state statutes. So, Anthony.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this with you today. We are presenting to you a change to our scoring system for our food hygiene program. Essentially, it is how we score restaurant inspections in our health district. So we're in a health district. I'll remind you guys of that. It's both Potter and Randall County and everything in between. So essentially, this is in response to a state law change that took place in August of 21 that did several things, but the primary changes that were made is it allows municipalities to decide which inspection form you use when conducting these inspections. And two, it made scoring of restaurant inspections optional. It's no longer required in state law, which was a pretty strange change. Our district has a very unique way of capturing scores that we show to the public. I'll show you a couple photos here. We do that via what's called a scorecard method. We have an alphanumerical score, so not only do you get a letter grade, but you get a numerical grade as well. And we summarize the inspection report to the scorecard that gets posted in the facility for the community to see. We worked on that pretty diligently about 4 or 5 years ago, and with the support of council and the Restaurant Association, we're able to pass that in our district. It's pretty unique. I really like it. We've had national recognition for this. We have communities that reach out to us all across the nation in support of what we do. The community absolutely loves it. Our restaurants love it. They love to show off their good grades. And for the facilities that don't get the best of grades, it incentivizes them for coming in compliance quickly. So what we're presenting today is the adoption of the 47-item inspection report, which is what was in place prior to state law change. We've invested quite a bit in our software that we use today, so we'd like to keep that going versus changing to the new form. In addition, we'd like to keep our scorecard. We presented this change to the public, to the Restaurant Association, and to the Amarillo Area Public Health Board of Health. Got letters of support from both the PRA and the Board of Health. And then I did want to mention when we sent out that survey, we sent a survey out to the general public. We pushed it really, really hard for about 2 months, sent it out through all channels. We got a lot of really positive feedback from the community. Everyone really likes what we're doing, wants to see it stay the same. To the tune, I think the metrics were about 97%, keep it the same, 3%, let's do something different. It was very, very one-sided. The last thing I do want to mention, a lot of the comments that we got back on that survey that we sent out was the community really wanted to see these scorecards more visible from the outside of the facility when they're walking up. So today we post them all over the place, on the front window, behind the counter, just wherever we feel is the best placement for it. But the community really wants to see on the front door when they're coming in. We presented that to the PRA, and they were all okay with that. So that's basically what you have in front of you. Unless you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
No questions, Anthony. Thank you.
Questions? All right.
We appreciate the work you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Do we have a motion with regard to item 3A?
Yes, Mayor, we do. I move to adopt ordinance number 7961, amending the Municipal Code, Chapter 8-5, Article 4, Section 8-5-20, to provide an updated scoring system for food hygiene inspections.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Powell and seconded by Councilmember Smith. Any questions or discussion about this item? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 3B is to consider the acceptance of the City of Amarillo Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the year ended September 30, 2021.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for having us. We are at the end of our year-end process and our annual audit. And as you're all aware, our fiscal year ended September 30th, and we are finally finished with it and putting it to rest. So this is the final step in that process. First and foremost, I want to thank Debbie Reed, our finance director. I also want to thank Valerie Kunert. She is our previous city auditor. She's in the back row here. She retired actually during this process. And also Matt Poston, our new city auditor, and all of their team. It takes a lot of work and a lot of staff to get to this point here. Currently, the city has 14 degreed accountant positions, and we actually have 5 CPAs on staff. We're about to lose one of our CPAs, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to gain another through the recruitment process. So, and all of these accountants and CPAs participate in this process. Also want to thank Janie Arnold and Katrina Owen here on the front seats here. They are with CMMS CPAs and advisors, and they are in charge of the city's audit. So we appreciate their partnership through this as well. Our annual comprehensive financial report receives the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, and we actually were recently awarded our one from the previous year, and that makes 45 years in a row that we have received that award. So we have a lot of years of financial responsibility and hard work and dedication from our team producing that award every year. So at each one of your spots, hopefully you have a copy of our draft annual comprehensive financial report. It's a very detailed document. Want to thank Dr. Sauer and Mayor Pro Tem Powell for their time last week as we met with our audit committee and also with Jared to go over. We thoroughly went over this document. Lots of good discussions, very good questions that took place. Also want to thank Laura Street, who is on that audit committee as well, for going over those financial statements with us. On page 1 of your document that you have here, this is our financial statement opinion, and we have an unmodified, clean opinion, and that is what you're looking for. That is what we strive for each and every year. We also have a report on internal controls over financial reporting that's on that page 1, and it discloses no findings of non-compliance. We also have further back, we have information on our single audit, and that is related to all of our grant expenditures for the fiscal year. We have a report on compliance and internal controls for those major programs, specifically the federal and state grant programs. And that also received an unmodified or a clean opinion. And that was related to $40.3 million in expenditures. And so with that, I would entertain any questions that you might have, or if Dr. Sauer or Mayor Pro Tem Powell have any comments that they would like to make from last week's audit committee meeting, that would be great. And we also have Janie Arnold and Katrina Owens here if you have any questions for them.
No questions? Okay.
All right.
Laura, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think what that means is that the council's done their homework and they read every single page of this audit report. Anybody want to make a motion about it?
Yes, I'll make a motion. Be happy to do that, Mayor. I move to accept the annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended September 30th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Dr. Sauer to approve item 3B. Any discussion or questions from the council about the motion? Hearing none, all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 3C is, Janie, I should have acknowledged you and Katrina both. We appreciate you. A tremendous amount of work
Yes,
and lots of hours have gone into this. So we just did it with a 5-0 vote, but you guys have really carried us through it. Yeah. So thank you very much. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Item 3C is to consider approval on a location incentive agreement between Amarillo Economic Development Corporation and Cavenous Beef Packers Limited. Mr. City Manager?
All right, Mayor, we've got Kevin Carter, President and CEO of AEDC, to present the item and answer any questions council has. Kevin?
Welcome,
Good
Kevin.
afternoon, Mayor, Council. This item is to consider the approval of a location incentive agreement between Amarillo Economic Development Corporation and Cavenous Beef Packers Limited. Cavenous Beef Packers has been in business for over 50 years in the Panhandle community, and they've operated the hamburger plant over on off of Amarillo Boulevard. They are constructing a new facility that so far has cost $60 million to construct and to equip. That new facility is located at South Washington and Loop 335. It's a beautiful new facility and an add to that area of town. So they currently employ around 103 employees and have a payroll of a little over $4.5 million. What this location incentive agreement would do is allow them to help them hire an additional 100 new employees over the next few years. Would add a little over $4.5 million in new annual payroll. The incentive that we are requesting is a $1 million incentive to be paid out over 5 years as the jobs are created. This would be $10,000 per job that we would pay over a 5-year period for every job that they create. All these funds would be paid in as they perform over the life of the agreement. Based on that level of capital investment and the full-time jobs created, the AEDC Board of Directors voted on a 4-0 basis to approve the location incentive agreement at their board meeting this morning. I think this is going to be a great project. It just is an example of kind of the mixture of the projects that we've been bringing to you. They're not all new projects. There's some existing businesses that want to expand in our area. They already know how great Amarillo is, and they're expanding their business, and we're very appreciative of businesses like that want to expand their footprint in Amarillo and the area. And so for that reason, I would certainly answer any questions, but I would ask that you would consider and approve this project as presented.
Questions for Kevin about the agreement or the project?
About a $15 million annual increase in economic activity with the payroll, the ancillary jobs that are going to be created. So, great project.
It's a great project and a great local company.
I do want to send along, Trevor Cavenous was not able to be here. They have a board meeting this afternoon, and so that's the reason why they're not here, but they wanted to send their thanks to the council.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Do we have a motion with regard to this item?
Yes, Mayor, we do. I move to approve a location incentive agreement between Amarillo Economic Development Corporation and Cavenous Beef Packers Limited that would provide Cavenous $1 million for the creation of up to 100 full-time employees to be paid out over 5 years based on a 5-year performance term.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilmember Smith to approve item 3C. Any further discussion or questions about the motion? Hearing none, all of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that item passes with a 5-0 vote. And you're right, Kevin, I just want to affirm the AEDC as well as City Economic Development Team very much so appreciates existing businesses, and anyone who wants to expand can have a conversation about getting incentives to do that, just like a new business that we're trying to attract to our town. So this is certainly a business we want to support, and they're expanding in a big way, taking a lot of risk to bring more jobs and participate even in a larger way in our local economy. So thank you. It's a good project. Item 3D is a public hearing in consideration of ordinance number 7962. Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, we've got Brady Kendrick here to present the item. It's a public hearing, first reading, like you said, of rezoning. Brady.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing and first reading of ordinance 7962 to consider rezoning a 0.81 acre tract of unplatted land in section 183, block 2, A.B.M. survey, Randall County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways to change from agricultural district to general retail district. The vicinity is Georgia Street and Southwest 58th Avenue, and the applicant is Lawrence Vigil for Vigil Properties, LLC. Adjacent zoning consists of agricultural district to the north and south, residential district 2 to the east, and general retail district to the west. Adjacent land uses consist of a convenience store and car wash to the north, undeveloped land to the south, single-family detached homes to the east, and a charter school to the west. The applicant is requesting the change in zoning in order to develop the tract with a restaurant. The Planning and Zoning Commission, in analyzing the request, found that the rezoning request would conform with the neighborhood unit concept of development and the future land use and character map. The Planning and Zoning Commission believes that the request is a logical continuation of existing zoning and development patterns in the area and would not result in any detrimental impacts. Notices were sent as required by state law, and no comments have been received as of this meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this request as presented unanimously.
Any questions for Brady about this item, Council? Thank you, Brady. Do we have a motion on item 3D?
Mayor, we have a public hearing.
And a public hearing.
That's okay.
I'm going to have to get like a buzzer or something to remind me. At this time, we'll open a public hearing on item 3D. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for, on, or against this item? See no one, will close the public hearing and now entertain a motion.
Yes, Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 7962, rezoning a 0.81 acre tract of unplatted land in section 183, block 2, A.B.M. survey, Randall County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways to change from agricultural district to general retail district in the vicinity of Georgia Street and Southwest 58th Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilmember Stanley to approve ordinance number 7962. Any further discussion or questions about that motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The item passes with a 5-0 vote. Moving to item 3E, also a public hearing in consideration of ordinance number 7963. Brady?
All right, this is a public hearing in consideration of 7963, rezoning of the east 74 feet of the west 180 feet of Lot 9, Block 8, Pleasant Valley Unit Number 1, a subdivision of the southeast 1/4 and part of the southwest 1/4 of Section 159, Block 2, A.B.M. survey, Potter County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways, the change from Residential District 1 to Residential District 1 with a specific use permit 199 for the placement of a Type B manufactured home. The vicinity is Withers Avenue and Mountain Drive, and the applicant is Leocardio Durante. Adjacent zoning consists of residential District 1 in all directions, and adjacent land uses consist of single-family detached homes to the north, south, and east, and an existing manufactured home to the west. The applicant is requesting the change in zoning in order to place a Type B manufactured home on the lot. The applicant's proposed manufactured home was built in 2021 and is 15 feet wide and 1,185 square feet, all of which exceed the minimum standards for a Type B manufactured home. In considering the request, the Planning and Zoning Commission noted that there are 6 existing manufactured homes within a 2-block radius of the applicant's tract and a total of 32 manufactured homes within a 10-block radius. Based on the existing development patterns in the area, the Planning and Zoning Commission was of the opinion that the overall character of the subdivision would not be changed, nor would a new precedent be set. Additionally, an appraisal provided by the applicant stated that if the request were to be approved, it would not adversely affect surrounding property values. Notices were sent as required by state law, and no comments have been received as of this meeting. Considering the factors mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission believes that if approved, the request would not result in any detrimental impacts and recommends approval of the request unanimously.
Any questions for Brady, council? Okay, thank you, Brady. At this time, we'll open a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak for, on, or against item 3E, Ordinance 7963, may do so at this time. Is there anyone present? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item 3E.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 7963, rezoning the east 74 feet of the west 180 feet of Lot 9, Block 8, Pleasant Valley, Unit Number 1, a subdivision of the southeast 1/4 and part of the southwest 1/4 of Section 159, Block 2, ABNM, Survey, Potter County, Texas, plus 1/2 of all bounding streets, alleys, and public ways to change from Residential District 1 to Residential District 1 with specific use permit 199 for the placement of a Type B manufactured home in the vicinity of Weathers Avenue and Mountain Drive.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Council Member Sauer to approve ordinance number 7963. Any discussion or questions about the motion?
Yeah, I want to make one question just
Sure.
real quick. And obviously, it's just a clarification question. So whenever we do this and we give a special use permit, does that special use permit now go into infinity for that particular lot?
Yes, once it's approved, it runs with the life of the property.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because that's what I thought. I was making for sure. Yeah, okay.
Okay, anybody else? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item passes with a 5-0 vote. We've got 2 items left, council, on our non-consent agenda. Does anybody need to take a bathroom break, or do we want to press on?
I do.
Okay, we're going to pause for a minute, take a break. We'll come back and do those 2 items. And actually, we're going to pause on that one and move to 3G, do consideration of ordinance number 7964. Jared?
Mayor, we've got Police Chief Martin Birkenfeld to present the item. This is something the Police Department and Fire Department and our dispatch center have been talking about for some time. So, Police Chief, take it away.
Yes, sir. As we talked about last council meeting, we've been looking at the issue of the towing rotation and the inefficiency that it creates, and so we are suggesting change in the ordinance to basically delete the language referring to the towing rotation contract. And also, while we're at it, we are looking at raising the minimums that the towing companies can charge for non-consent tows. Our minimums are well below the state allowed maximums. I'm sorry, our maximums are below the state allowed maximums. And so I've come up with some figures here based on inflation, based on looking at some other departments. There's a lot of cities that don't even regulate the maximum other than what the state already lays out here. So that's basically the 2 parts. One part deleting the references to the rotation, and the second part adjusting the fees upwards to keep up with the rising cost of everything.
Any other questions for the chief about this item? Okay.
Chief,
Go ahead,
would
Jerry.
we have to modify the ordinance in the future to do a rotation if we wanted to?
No, with the deletion of that language, then whatever method
Contract
works.
or rotate.
Correct. It could be a rotation or just a single source for that service that we need.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion with regard to item 3G?
Yes, Mayor, we do. I move to adopt ordinance number 7964, amending the Amarillo Municipal Code, Chapter 10-3, Article 7, Section 10-3-11A to update maximum non-consent towing fees and deleting Chapter 10-3, Article 7, Section 10-3-116.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilmember Smith to approve ordinance number 7964. Any discussion or questions about the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item passes with a 5-0 vote. Moving back up to do item 3F is a discussion and possible consideration of a Chapter 380 Economic Development Program agreement between the City of Amarillo and Commonwealth Development for the Commons at St. Anthony's project located at Amarillo Boulevard and Polk Street. Mr. City Manager.
All right, Mayor, we have Andrew Freeman, Assistant City Manager, to present this item, and this is pursuant to a lot of productive work between a number of jurisdictional partners to make this project a possibility. It does touch a historic building that is in great need of assistance. So, Andrew, take it away, and this is a great use.
Yes, sir. So just a little bit of background. This isn't a new project for City Council. You all supported this project back in 2020 when it went to the state for housing development tax credits. So this is a 124-unit senior living apartment complex that would be affordable housing, and it would be an adapted reuse of the St. Anthony's Hospital, the eastern side of that campus. So they'll be developing it to historical standards. What we're here to discuss today is the developer and owner of the project has reached out due to the increased pricing and some of the struggles they've had working through their due diligence and getting the project moving. It has seen some delays, which has caused pricing to go up, which all of you are familiar with in your various businesses and projects that you've worked on. This one is a little tougher, being a historic rehab and the number of steps involved in developing that site. So some of the specifics between summer of 2021 and January of this year, the project has experienced a 27% increase in their construction pricing. Specifically, the major trades, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, drywall have all increased an average of 18%. It's actually the second time they've seen a large spike in their costs. They actually went back to the state to increase the funding that they were allowed to apply for an additional $2 million. But after receiving that, they kept working to finish the design of the project, working through their permits, and going back to their contractor and their sub-trades to see if they could still do the project for the previous bids, and saw the pricing continue to increase. So where the project stands today, the owner of the project did move forward and close on the property, purchasing it from North Heights Advisory Association in anticipation of moving forward. But as they've gone through the last remaining steps of the financing, they have not closed on their financing yet until we've had this conversation. It is at risk now of not moving forward due to the increased cost of construction, just based on the budget that they were able to put forward through this project. It is a almost $30 million project, an investment, I believe they told us $24 million in hard cost construction going into this building if it is to move forward. So they have come back and requested assistance from the City of Amarillo and Potter County to help on this project. As we work through some of the possible funding sources that the city and the county might have available, we discussed everything from property tax rebates, building permit fee waivers, American Rescue Plan funds, which specifically do qualify for use for construction of affordable housing. And also, we discussed utilizing funding from the city's neighborhood plan funding allocation that was approved in the 2016 bond to go toward implementing the North Heights neighborhood plan. So this is a map of the area. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can see the blue line delineating the sold property, and then the western side that remains with North Heights Advisory Association, just to give you an idea of the eastern portion that they would actually touch with this project. So based on discussions, we've met with the North Heights Advisory Association. We've met with Potter County, also with Mayor Nelson and Mayor Pro Tem Powell, visiting on this topic, had additional conversations mainly around that neighborhood funding allocation and not wanting to see those funds reallocated and not be able to be used by the North Heights Advisory Association. So we took a harder look at the proposal and have come back with what you see on this slide for your consideration. This does show Potter County and City of Amarillo, so I'll go over the City of Amarillo items. What's being proposed is 10 years of property tax rebates, which based on where it hits on the tax rolls, we're estimating approximately $152,000. Building permit fee refund of approximately $88,000, and then ARPA funds of $1,050,000. And then you can see the difference to get to the $2 million would be made up of Potter County's contribution of property tax rebates, and then American Rescue Plan funds of $500,000. And then the breakdown at the bottom, I just show the city's contribution would be about 64% of the request, and Potter County's would be about 36%. So that's what's being proposed today. This would be, if considered by council, would be packaged into a Chapter 380 Economic Development Agreement. And then based on the feedback or approval today, we would also go to Potter County on Monday for them to consider the item as well for their components of the agreement.
I'd like to hand the floor to Mayor Pro Tem Powell just to give a report, just add a little color to what Andrew reported on the meeting that we had just yesterday morning with the Neighborhood Association, with the Commonwealth Group, who was here discussing their shortfall and how the project is currently at risk. And just so, Frida, will you just give us your thoughts on how that meeting went and how we ended up at this proposal?
Well, I thought the overall meeting went well, and it was good to be able to have all of the players sit down at the table together to discuss the funding options. And Mr. Kent Hansey did a great job of explaining their position and why they had a $2 million gap that we needed to help close. And of course, the overall issue was just due to supply chain problems and also subcontractors that they're working with. And they're struggling to hold their pricing just like every other subcontractor or developer across the United States. So everybody's kind of in that boat. And a lot of that ties back to the pandemic, which we hate that, but that's reality. But I think when it was all said and done, the North Heights Neighborhood Association, they were very pleased with our discussions and where we are on the funding. But I do want to add that we've talked a little bit about the property, and as most of the citizens know, that for decades, this property has sat vacant. And St. Anthony's has saved a lot of lives throughout the process, and even I myself personally used St. Anthony's back in the day, and very glad those services were right there in the neighborhood to save my life. The building itself, of course, right now, as you all saw from the pictures, it's vacant. It's a blighted site. It's an eyesore. It's boarded up. It's decaying, basically on the borders of our downtown Amarillo. We also have a lot of security issues in keeping the building secure most of the time. But this project is definitely a game changer for North Amarillo, not just North Heights, but North Amarillo in general. It's a cornerstone, and this project, again, as I stated to the Potter County Commissioners last Monday, that St. Anthony's Hospital can be transformed back to life and with a facelift and become an asset not only for the North Heights neighborhood community, but also for the city of Amarillo, the downtown area, and North Amarillo. We could have increased economic development, and I was part of a visioning group early on, so just using the historical part for the 124 units for senior citizens over the age of 55, that was definitely a start. But once you get the economic development in place, I could also see, there would be a decent, safe place for our seniors for a place to live, and this would be the first senior citizens facility that we would have in that area. We could also have maybe like a resource center. We could have restaurants, coffee shops, banquet event centers, maybe even a Social Security satellite office, daycare facility. So I've envisioned, what that property could be. So I did make a commitment to Judge Tanner and her commissioners that I would put this on our agenda for us as council members to also discuss. And I told her that, I would advocate to you all because my goal is we have a $2 million gap, and so I want to save a $30 million project. That's my whole purpose, So I'm asking you all as council members to take another huge leap of faith with me to help me save this $30 million project for the county, the city, North Amarillo, but more importantly for North Heights Neighborhood Advisory Association in the North Heights community. And I did want to, I had some other notes here. So I've had two individuals who are major investors in our city. So they have also reached out to me to see what they can do to help with this project. And after talking to Mr. Kent Hance yesterday, Mayor Nelson and I, we learned that they still have the St. Anthony Surgical Unit. This unit is on the west side of the property, so it's going to need to be demolished. The price tag for just that piece of it is about $500,000. And so keeping in mind that the overall project itself is really about quality of life. And so the North Heights Neighborhood Association, they want to put in place, once the surgical center is demolished, maybe a park, which would be nice. And so that's definitely going to add to the quality of life there. But I think the discussions were great. I was glad that we all had the opportunity to come to the table to be united. And we also met with two of the Potter County commissioners during our meeting. So I feel like they're going to go back and carry the torch on their end. But the city and the county, we are united. We're moving forward. We are united with the North Heights Advisory Association because we want to make this project materialize and it be a benefit for the entire community and the city.
So you feel like the county, this is something, they meet again on Monday, and they can't vote on it while they're just there. They didn't have a quorum or anything like that. But the commissioners who were there indicated their support for this proposal, and they'll be visiting with the judge about getting it on their agenda for Monday.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And you can see, council, that our number changed from $1 million to $1,050,000. So I just want to point that out in case somebody's thinking that 5 looks like a 0. I didn't want anybody to be surprised by that change. But this proposal then leaves the $300,000 with the neighborhood association, and they have a lot of energy and excitement about ideas on how to use that money, and we encouraged them to move quickly on using that money. So hopefully they'll be implementing some projects and changes. But this proposal would not touch that $300,000 from them, but instead the county and the city would come together and make it up.
And they already have a draft business plan in place that they're going to be moving forward with so that they will be able to deploy those dollars into that particular project. So.
Any questions? Howard?
Will this be a sure thing if we go along? In other words, companies bid to do construction. Is that locked in? Or is that, if prices continue to go up, are we going to get it 3/4 built and then stop?
I think that's a good question. I mean, Andrew, do you want to?
No, I think they're getting their pricing locked in if they decide to move forward. I don't think it would escalate through the project, but that would be between them and their contractors.
Well, and specifically to that point, this is a reimbursement, so these funds are not an incentive given to a developer on the front end. This is a performance of you do the project. Once the project is completed, then this is reimbursement for the cost overrun. Am I correct?
Partially, I did have some additional conversations with them, and since they do need the money for the construction, they requested the ARPA dollars 75% during construction, 25% after the certificate of occupancy. Granted, we would build the 380 agreement that there would be clawbacks if there was an issue with it, that we would go back after those dollars if it wasn't completed. But that was the latest request we received.
Any issues on that from ARP money being restricted?
No.
Given out that way?
No, the ARPA dollars aren't specific on how you do it, just what qualifies as far as it being affordable housing construction.
I'd like to say I'm in favor of the project. I think it'd be wonderful. I just want to be sure. It's a sure deal if we move forward.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a wise question. Thank you for asking
and
it.
Mr. Hance and Commonwealth did state, I mean, they're very invested so far, I think to the tune of a little over $700,000 closing on the property, designing permits. So they don't want to walk away if they can move forward.
So when this project is done, will any of it still be uninhabitable, will any of this project continue to be vacant? So whenever they tear down what they're saying they're going to tear down, is there still vacant buildings there that can
basically
be
every
vagrant problem?
Basically everything to the west of that blue line would still be at risk of that until other plans are decided.
So can I ask the obvious question?
But the journey of 1,000 steps.
Yeah, but the
starts with one step.
The positive thing, Dr. Sauer, is that hopefully it's going to spur more economic development and have more investors that may be interested as time goes on. You know, I don't know what the projected completion date for this project is, but go ahead. I'm sorry, you were going to.
No, that you're answering part of it, but I mean, you know, doing this, we are taking a leap of faith because I don't know how I feel about placing a senior living facility right next, absolutely connected to a vacant building that's had a long history of vagrant vandalism. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I'm not for it, but I'm thinking, you know, how smart is this? In the reality of things.
That's a good question.
And it's not being addressed, and there's not even a plan. Well, we'll do this when this and this and this happens. I did hear in there that they're planning on. You said they planned on tearing down the surgical center part of it. That's $500,000. You know, how do we make for sure that when this is done, that they're actually have some protections? Because I think they need some protections.
Right. And Mr. Hance has made that very clear working with North Heights that if he's making this investment, he wants to see the area continue to grow. So I think he'll also continue those conversations with the North Heights Advisory Association. In our meeting, they discussed hopefully some more short-term plans for the West End. That's the newer portion of the hospital with some ideas that they have. But absolutely. We're hoping this investment, we see it time and again. If you put that much investment into one project, it really spurs from that. So I think that's what we're hoping for. He did say they will have to go back to the state and get an extension, but the goal, I think, would be to have the project completed by the end of 24. So they would move pretty quickly.
Lots of security, too.
Yeah.
I'm for it. That just, honestly,
that's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean.
He did reference, I mean, there are no guarantees here. But he did say this is their 20th project like this, and that most of those projects have spurred a ripple effect of surrounding development, kind of like our Buc-ee's project we're hoping for. So, you know, I think
Who said that?
Mr. Hance said that on Monday.
Okay.
Obviously, it won't happen overnight. We get impatient wanting it to happen sooner, faster than it typically does. But if you took a 5 or 10 year outlook on it.
And I think he said of all the projects they've been ownership in, they own all but 2 still. So they still own quite a few of their properties and
Yes.
are committed to the cities that they invest in.
Right. That's right. Okay. Cole, do you have questions?
Well, I mean, as far as the ARP monies go, I think this is exactly what those monies are intended to do. So I don't have any heartburn over the $1,050,000 going towards this versus going towards some other projects that may not be as community driven or as consequential to a certain aspect of our town as a whole, you know, where this ultimately costs us long term if we don't do anything. And so you have a cost to weigh on both sides. So yes, there's some risk involved, but there's also risk involved with not moving forward with it. And then I personally believe that, you know, this amount of investment in money is going to bring occupants, and that the security and the deterioration of this area of our city is because it's uninhabited. And not because it's a bad part of town necessarily, not because the buildings around it are super ran down. I mean, it doesn't have anything chronic other than just having people. And so when we turn the lights on and we get occupants there, I don't feel like we'll have the drawback that the concern would be of, well, we still have unoccupied buildings next door. The traffic and the population that would fill this up with 124 units would be quite a bit more substantial, I think, than what the other weighing factors would contribute. So my issue would be just a commitment from Potter County for the $500,000 at the same time that we would give our commitment. I know we're hearing that. So don't mind going first, just don't want to go alone.
With that exact sentiment was expressed at the meeting yesterday.
Sure was.
And we said, you know, it's on our agenda first, but we want a commitment from the 2 commissioners that were present that they would be supporting it and asking for it to be put on their Monday agenda. And that was as much as they could deliver yesterday.
Without having, you know, their other fellow commissioners' opinions and, you know, their thoughts as well.
So we are absolutely in the go first and counting on not going alone.
They certainly seem to have more heartburn over the neighborhood dollars, $300,000 piece, than the ARPA dollars, I think, that we resolved.
Okay. Any other questions for Andrew? Okay. We have a motion with regard to item 3F then?
Yes, Mayor, we do. I move to approve a Chapter 380 agreement for the Commons at St. Anthony's project with 100% of the annual property taxes rebated for 10 years. That's in the amount of $152,470 and $1,050,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds, with 75% paid during construction and 25% paid after a certificate of occupancy is received, and a refund on paid permitting fees related to the project, and that's in the amount of $88,098.
Second.
It's been moved by the Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Dr. Sauer to approve the proposal to support a 380 Economic Development Program agreement for this project on St. Anthony's. Any further discussion or questions? Yes.
I'd like to
Councilmember
move
Smith.
to amend the motion to make it contingent upon Potter County approving it.
Okay. We have a motion to amend the original motion. Help me, Brian. Do we vote on that motion to amend, or does Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Powell have the right to go back in and amend without council voting?
The Mayor Pro Tem can go back and amend her motion for that contingency if she wishes.
Okay. Is council in agreement with that?
I would add that we would have the opportunity to come back and discuss it. If the county acts and they don't support it, then we can revisit it knowing where their support is. But what I'm anticipating, your point is, Councilmember Smith, is you want to know that this vote today is contingent on the county following through on their $500,000.
That's my point.
It doesn't close the door on us revisiting it, but it also tells the county that what we approved today is anticipation of you being on board, which is similar to what Councilmember Stanley.
So how do we accomplish what I'm trying to do?
I believe I could second that, which I would want to do, and then we would vote on this amendment. But it leaves the
I
other
think
on the
if
floor.
she amends, because she holds the power of the motion because she made the motion. If she amends the motion, then we'll vote on the amended motion. Correct, Brian?
That is correct. Or you could just table the matter and take it up the next time.
Okay.
You have two options.
Okay, so Dr. Sauer, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right. So, Mayor, I would like to amend my motion to say that the proposal would be contingent upon Potter County passing their
portion of the proposal. Okay.
Second.
Great. So that has been amended, and the amendment has been seconded by Dr. Sauer. Now, any further discussion or questions? Okay, great. All of those in favor of the amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes with a 5-0 vote, and we will see how Potter County votes on that on Monday. And that concludes our non-executive session portion of the agenda. So at this time, I would ask the city attorney to read our dismissal language.
Yes, ma'am. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, closed session of the Amarillo City Council was announced on February 22nd, 2022 at 3:20 p.m. under the following exceptions. Section 551.072, discuss a purchase, exchange, lease, sale, or value of real property. Public discussion of such would not be in the best interest of the city's bargaining position. Section 551.087, discuss commercial financial information received from an existing business or business prospect from which the city is negotiating for the location or retention of a facility or for incentives the city is willing to extend, or financial information submitted by the same. Section 551.074, discuss the employment evaluation of a public officer or employee. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. With that, we are dismissed to executive session.